Welcome to this video. Today we talk about the Gainesville Ripper. Make sure you are subscribed and like. Let's get started. Introduction. In 1990, the city of Gainesville, Florida, was rocked by a series of horrific murders that left the community in fear. The perpetrator, Danny Rolling, would later be known as the Gainesville Ripper, but the case itself would remain a mystery for much longer. What followed was a manhunt that gripped the nation. This is the story of Danny Rolling, the man behind the murders in Gainesville. Who was Danny Rolling? Danny Rolling was born in 1954 in Shreveport, Louisiana. His childhood was far from normal. He grew up in a dysfunctional family where physical and emotional abuse were everyday occurrences. His father, a violent man, physically abused both Danny and his mother. As a result, Danny struggled with significant psychological and emotional trauma from a young age. As he got older, his violent tendencies seemed to grow stronger. His childhood, filled with fear and humiliation, played a critical role in the violent acts he would later commit. Danny never had the support of a healthy family or the guidance of a stable environment. This led to a lifelong battle with his inner demons. Throughout his teenage years and early adulthood, he exhibited violent behaviors, but it wasn't until 1990 that his actions would truly shock the world. The murders in Gainesville, 1990. In the summer of 1990, from August 24 to 28, the city of Gainesville was shaken by 5 murders. All the victims were students at the University of Florida. The murders took place over a short period of time, causing the city to be gripped by fear and uncertainty. The police were dealing with a perpetrator who was methodical in his approach. Danny Rolling broke into the homes of his victims while they slept. The murders were carried out in a calculated manner, showing similarities that quickly led the police to suspect a serial killer. The pattern of violent behavior, along with the way the murders were committed, gave the police the impression they were dealing with an exceptionally violent perpetrator. The Gainesville community lived in constant fear. The murders were not only targeting young, innocent people, but they were also marked by extreme brutality, which only deepened the mystery surrounding the identity of the killer. The investigation and breakthrough. As time passed, several clues were gathered. The police discovered that the murders all showed a pattern, making the theory of a serial killer more likely. An intensive investigation was launched, with countless resources being used. The major breakthrough came when DNA evidence was found, linking Danny Rolling to the crimes. Rolling had previously been arrested for other crimes in the region. Because of his prior involvement in criminal activities, the police were able to investigate him further. He was eventually arrested and charged with the murders of the 5 students in Gainesville. DNA evidence and other clues led investigators to one of the most infamous serial killers of that time. The trial and conviction. Danny Rolling's trial began in 1994. The case was complex for several reasons. During the trial, it became clear that Rolling had severe psychological issues. His defense tried to explain his violent acts by pointing to the trauma he had experienced as a child. It also came to light during the trial that Danny Rolling had not only suffered physical abuse from his father but had also suffered from various psychological disorders. Psychological reports suggested that his violent behavior might have been a result of deep-rooted childhood trauma. Despite this, the evidence against him was overwhelming. DNA evidence and other forensic data ensured that the jury had no choice but to conclude that he was responsible for the murders. Danny Rolling was found guilty and sentenced to death. The execution and aftermath. Danny Rolling was ultimately executed in 2006, after spending 12 years on death row. He was given the death penalty for his actions, and his execution brought the case, which had been a topic of conversation for years, to a dramatic end. However, even after his execution, his name remained linked to one of the most gruesome serial killings in American history. The case of Danny Rolling continues to captivate people. His psychological condition, his childhood trauma, and the nature of the murders are often discussed by criminologists and psychologists. Was he simply a product of his environment, or was he one of many criminals who couldn't control their violent impulses? The question remains unresolved. The legacy of the case. The Gainesville Ripper case not only changed the city of Gainesville forever but also raised national awareness about serial killers and the impact of childhood trauma. Rowling is still frequently mentioned in discussions about criminal psychology, especially because his violent behavior stemmed not only from his social environment but also from deep psychological issues. The case shocked not only the public but also pushed law enforcement agencies to work with new techniques, such as DNA analysis, which would later play a crucial role in many other cases. Conclusion: the case of Danny Rowling serves as a reminder of the darker sides of human nature. It's a story of someone who expressed his pain and frustrations in the most tragic way possible. Despite his psychological issues and the violence in his upbringing, the question of why someone like him was capable of committing such gruesome crimes remains a subject of debate. The story of the Gainesville Ripper is a warning about the impact of childhood trauma on criminal behavior but also about the role that justice and science play in solving crimes. And while the case of Danny Rowling came to an end with his execution, the story remains an important part of the history of serial murder and one of the most notorious criminal cases in American criminology. If you're fascinated by true crime stories and the advancements in forensic science, don't forget to subscribe to our channel for more in-depth coverage of real-life mysteries. Thank you for watching, and we'll see you in the next video.